My old Arawa friend Te Matehaere, one-time guerrilla soldier and bush scout, lives in a very beautiful and romantic spot, the ancient ditched and parapeted fortress Wiriwiri, overlooking the soft blue expanse of Rotorua Lake. Wiriwiri Pa was built by Matehaere's great ancestor Ihenga 5 centuries ago, and there within the entrenched lines the old warrior lives today, growing his potatoes and kumara and maize, enjoying the fruit and shade of his orchard trees, gazing out over the calm and lovely lake, crooning the love chants of his youth and the songs of the fairy tribe with whom his forefather made friends in the dim and wonderful past. Yonder to the south of Wiriwiri, lifting steeply from the plain in fern-hung scarps, is the fairy mountain Ngongotahā, and about that peak of his forefathers Matehaere has many a curious story. His description of the fairy folk, as handed down through the generations from Ihenga, is the most circumstantial account of the Patupaiarehe that I have yet heard from Maori lips. Long ago, said Te Matehaere, the summit of yon mountain, Ngongotahā, the peak top called Te Tuahu Aotearoa, the altar of the god, was the chief home of the fairy people of this country. The name of that tribe of Patupaiarehe was Aotearoa, and the chiefs of that tribe in the days of my ancestor Ihenga were Tuahu, Te Rangitāmai, Tongakuhu, and Rotukohu. The people were very numerous. There were 1,000 or perhaps many more on Ngongotahā. They were an iwi atua, a godlike race, a people of supernatural powers. In appearance, some of them were very much like the Maori people of today. Others resembled the Pakeha race. The colour of most of them was kiri puwhiro, reddish skins, and their hair had red or golden tinge, which we call urukehu. Some had black eyes, some blue, like the fair-skinned Europeans. They were about the same height as ourselves. Some of their women were very beautiful, very fair of complexion, and some had shining fair hair. They wore chiefly flax garments called pakarangi, dyed a red colour. They also wore the rough mats pora and poreki. In disposition they were peaceful. They were not a war-loving, angry people. Their food consisted of products of the forest, and they also came down to this lake Rotorua to catch inanga, whitebait. There was one curious characteristic of these Patupaiarehe. They had a great dread of the steam that rose from cooked food. In the evenings when the Maori people living in Te Raho or Te Rangipiri, other places near the fairy abodes, opened their cooking ovens. All the Patupaiarehe retired to their houses immediately. They saw the clouds of vapour rising and shut themselves up. They were afraid of the māmoa, the steam. The Patupaiarehe of Ngongotahā had no water supply close to their pa. The mountain is a very dry place. At any rate, near the summit, the sacred Tuahu Aotearoa. So the women had to come a long way to draw their supplies from a spring under the northern cliffs, near the side of Kwa Spur, the ancient sacred burial place of the Ngāti Whakaua tribe, whence they carried water up the mountain in a taha, gourd calabashes. And there it was, upon the slopes of the fairy mountain, that my ancestor Ihenga met a woman of the Patupaiarehe when he first explored these parts nearly 20 generations ago. When Ihenga came to the bank of the stream, now called the Ngongotahā, the old legend keeper continued. He beheld a curl of smoke rising near the summit of the great mountain, looming dark blue above him. Maybe the smoke he saw was but a fairy mist. He left his wife on the shore of the lake to await his return, and ascended the mountain to discover what people dwelt there. As he climbed, he had to press his way through the thick fern on the lower slopes of the mountain before he came to the forest. There was much new fern springing up, and the fine pollen from this entered his mouth and nostrils and produced an intense thirst. He looked for a spring of water or a stream whereat he might drink, but found none. He toiled upward, and when he came near the top of the peak, he came all suddenly on the home of the Patupaiarehe. He gazed, marvelling on those strange people, whom he came to know well in after time. He was able to converse with them, for their language was very much like his own. He asked for water, and a beautiful young woman gave him a drink out of a calabash. Hence the name which Ihenga afterwards gave the mountain, a combination of the words gongo, to drink, also the wooden mouthpiece of the drinking vessel, and taha, a calabash. The fairy people pressed around him in great curiosity, touching him, feeling him all over, and asking innumerable questions. At last he became alarmed, thinking perhaps that they might kill and eat him, and he turned and broke through them and fled down the mountainside. The Patupaiarehe tribe chased him, but he far outstripped all of them except the young beauty who had given him the drink of water. She wished to catch the stranger and make him her husband. She cast away most of her garments in order to run the faster, and Ihenga, looking back as he raced down the rough mountainside, perceived that he would quickly be caught. He knew now that the uncanny people were Patupaiarehe, and he knew also that if once the athletic fairy lady seized him and laid her spell upon him, he would never see his Maori wife again. In that moment he bethought him of a trick to stay the pursuit. He carried attached to his girdle a small putea, or flax satchel, containing some kokowai, red ochre mixed with shark oil, which he used on occasions for painting his body. He opened this as he ran and smeared himself with it. Now the fairy people are very dainty in some ways as compared with the Māoris. The haunga, or odour of the shark oil, so disgusted the young woman that she stopped and gave up the chase, and Ihenga rejoined his wife on the beach of the lake and told of his strange adventure. But later Ihenga became very friendly with the Patupaiarehe and dwelt quite near them in his pa, Whakaiki Tahuna, on the Waititi stream, near the northern base of the Fairy Mountain. It is not far from the sacred stream to which you and I once went to see Ihenga's axe-polishing stone, the Tapu Waiorotoki brook of no man may drink and live. From an old couple, too, who lived by the Waiofero stream near the base of Ngongotahā Mountain, came poetic stories of the mountain Patupaiarehe. They sometimes went out wild pig hunting on the ferny slopes of Ngongotahā, and the husband sometimes hunted the kiwi in the depths of the bush, for his wife desired the feathers of that night-roving bird to stitch into fine mats and kits, which she wove so industriously. But nothing would induce either of them to go up that way on a foggy day when the mists hung low on the sides of the Fairy Mountain. For then, said they, the Patupaiarehe were abroad, and sometimes their ghostly voices could be heard, and it would perhaps not be good to meet them. Their mental attitude towards the mythical Patupaiarehe seemed to be a mixture of fear and veneration, and strangely a little affection, exactly the feeling of the Irish peasant and the primitive Highlander, as revealed in old-world folklore tales, and they delighted in crooning the old fairy songs. One of these was a little fairy haka. Their ancestors said they had heard these dance songs chanted high up on the misty mountain on Still, calm days when the fog enveloped the range. This is how the haka chant went. Horahia te marino, horahia e Rotorua, tokoa te rangi mo te ruri, kia rirehu e hinawa e. Spread out below lies Rotorua Lake. How calm and still it lies. This is our day for dance and song, how far the sound will travel. When Ihenga, said the Kiwi hunter, left this land and went on a journey of exploration through the island with his followers, even to Waikato and Kaipara, the Patupaiarehe sorrowed greatly and sang songs of lamentation for their friend who never returned to them. Some of the fairy people went in search of him and followed him all the way to the far north, and some of them found him at Moho, Cape Colville, where that long and lofty headland runs out into the sea to meet Aotearoa, the Great Barrier Island, and there they stayed, and so to this day fairies are sometimes to be heard singing their songs far up on the misty Moho. Ai, said the wife Huhia, but it was really the fire that drove most of the fairies away. There are some there still, as we know, but most of the tribe vanished when the Māoris, after Ihenga's day, set fire to the forests, which covered the whole of Ngongotahā. These fires overran the range, and, as you can see, destroyed the forests on the eastern and northern sides. And one of the fairy chiefs, named Tongakohu, left his abode on the mountain top, and travelled away to Moho and to Mount Pirongia in the Waikato. And thus both those mountains became the haunts of the fairy people. And this is the farewell song which Tongakohu, the Patupaiarehe, chanted as he wept over his beloved Ngongotahā. And the tattooed old dame chanted a low, mournful song, which I afterwards committed to my notebook and now give in the Māori and in the English. E mori ahi ahi, ka hara mai te aroha, ka no I aho, ki taku urunga tapu, ka maho I aho, e ngongo maunga, ka tūkau noa rā, te ahi a mahueka. Nana e tahu ma e, ka haere ai o ki maho, ki parongia rā e te urunga tapu e te rotokohu kia ata akia kia mihi aka au, ki taku toahu ka mahu e hone. He rai, kotahi hoke e noho e ao, ka haere atu a ka ore e hoke mai nai. This translates to, night's shadows fall, keen sorrow eats my heart, grief for the land I'm leaving, for my sacred sleeping place, the home pillow I'm leaving, on Gongo's lofty peak. So lone my mountain stands, swept by the flames of Mahueka. I'm going far away, to the heights of Moho, to Pirongia, to seek another home. O Rotokohu, leave me yet a while. Let me farewell my forest shrine, the tuahu I'm leaving. Give me but one more day, just one more day, and then I'll go, and I'll return no more. It was the Māori version of Lochaber No More, a lament for the ancestral shealing from which the old stock, not unlike the Highland crofters at the other end of the world, were evicted by the new lords of the land with axe and firebrand. Yet there are still fairies in this fastnesses of Ngongotahā, said Huhia. On the dim and cloudy days when the mists descend and envelope the mountainside, the thin voices of the Patupaiarehe people may be heard high up on the mountains, and also the music of their flutes, the potorino, sounding very sweet, like spirit music, through the fog.